Welcome to the WP Builds podcast, bringing you the latest news from the WordPress community. Now, welcome your hosts, David Wormsley and Nathan Wrigley.
Hello there and welcome to the WP Builds podcast once again. This is episode number 274, entitled, How Can You Make Your Website Have a Smaller Carbon Footprint? It was published on Thursday the 14th of March 2022. My name's Nathan Wrigley and I'll be joined by our guest in just a few short minutes, but before then a little bit of housekeeping, as we always do. First thing to say is if you are interested in anything WP Builds, well, please head over to our website. It's at the fairly obvious URL, wpbuilds.com. You'll notice a menu at the top, and the links that I'd like to suggest that you look at are the subscribe link, first of all, wpbuilds.com/subscribe. Over there, you'll be able to find a couple of email lists that you can sign up for. One, to be notified about the podcast when we produce it, and also to let you know about any deals that we find along the way. There's also our Twitter handle on there, which is at WP Builds, YouTube channel and so on, so feel free to go over there and subscribe. But yeah, that's a really good page. And another one would be wpbuilds.com/deals. I mention this each and every week because lots of you seem to use it to get significant amounts off. Coupon codes for products, themes, blocks, and all of that good WordPress stuff. So that's wpbuilds.com/deals. It's there 365 days of the year. So if you're buying something, why not make use of it? The other thing to mention is if you are interested in joining our small but very, very nice community over on our Mastodon install, it's a free bit of open source software. It's a bit like Twitter, but without all of the clutter going on. It's wpbuilds.social. Yes, that is a URL, wpbuilds.social. So come and join us. There's, I think, about 80 of us so far. It's fairly quiet, but you never know. If I keep pushing it, maybe some people will sign up and have a conversation in a federated, non-conglomerate architecture. Okie dokie. Another thing to mention, every Monday, I don't know if you know about this, but every Monday we do a live show. It's called This Week in WordPress. Me and typically 3 guests from the WordPress community go live and we talk about the WordPress news from the previous week. What I suggest that you do is that you put something in your calendar. It's 2 p.m. UK time, or you could just go to wpbuilds.com/live every Monday, 2 p.m. UK time, and join us. Make some comments. We love the more comments, the better. Okay, let's talk about the podcast episode today, shall we? Like I said, number 274. Today on the podcast, we have Marco Berrocal, who works for GreenGeeks. So GreenGeeks are a green hosting company who endeavour to make their hosting packages more friendly in terms of the carbon footprint that they create. But the conversation that we have today is much more wide-ranging than that. We talk about what it is on the internet that we're doing. How is it that we're able to manage to look at web pages, and of course it all comes down in the end to the consumption of electricity, and that has an impact. So we talk about the kinds of initiatives that you could get involved in, the ways that you could make sure that your browsing doesn't impact the environment, and I think it's fair to say that most of us using the internet probably don't give this a second thought. We just browse on our benign, shiny, clean devices and have no conception of what's going on. So we talk about all of that, different ways that we can improve our experience on the internet and hopefully reduce the impact. And then towards the end, we talk about GreenGeeks' credentials as a green host and what it is that they do that's unique. I hope that you enjoy it. Hello there, welcome to the WP Builds podcast once more. Today we have an interview episode and I'm joined today by Marco Berrocal from GreenGeeks. Hi there, Marco.
Hello there, Nathan. Pleasure to be here.
Now, I have to be honest, I've managed to wake Marco up at some ludicrous hour of the day. I think you just said it was 4:30 in the morning. And so it's honestly, I would be unable to function at 4:30 in the morning. So, you know, if you just want to go and take a lie down during this podcast, that's fine.
No. Actually, if I don't respond in a few seconds, you know what happened.
Yeah, that would be a great podcast. Me just talking and then silence.
Yeah.
We're here though today to talk about GreenGeeks, which is the company that Marco works for. Probably the best thing to do if you want to familiarize yourself with Green Geeks and you've never heard of them before is to go to Green Geeks. It's exactly as you might expect, .com, greengeeks.com. And go and check the website out. They're a hosting company, but they've got a little bit of a different take on hosting because they have the environment and eco-friendliness as a sort of big badge of honor. It's their UVP, if you like. And that is the topic that we're going to explore today. And I have to say, Marco, when I use the internet, even though I know that your company exists, and even though I'm clearly aware that I'm consuming resources of the planet, I find it very hard in my head to connect my use of the internet with environmental damage. I see it almost as like reading a book. You know, it's completely benign. And I don't mean I'm actively trying to ignore the problem. It's just, it doesn't have the same impact. Whereas if I get a bottle of milk and I destroy, you know, at the end of using that bottle of milk, I throw the plastic bottle away. It's a really tangible thing. And I can see what I'm doing and I can feel it and it's visceral. Whereas the internet, my use of the internet, whether that's me hosting websites or just browsing the internet, I find that really a difficult jump to make. So I'm hoping just right at the outset, can you paint a picture for us of how the internet as a whole is causing problems for our environment?
Yeah, absolutely. So the internet is based ultimately, if we get down to physics and the raw stuff out there, it's basically a bunch of impulses, electrical impulses that are actually transmitted between, from and to your computer. So when you are accessing a website, you are actually sending or receiving those impulses from a server that is ultimately serving you a web page on your browser. I mean, that's really the raw physics of how the internet works. And obviously, we're all interconnected via these huge cables that are actually beneath the sea. There are these gigantic cables, like, for example, there's one between New York and London. And this is ultimately how we communicate. So all of that stuff, all of those impulses, all of that energy that is being transmitted worldwide in billions and billions of data, that is, servers are being used to power that. And servers have the particular issue, even though they're getting more and more efficient as time goes by, you still need a lot of power to keep them cool because of the heat that they transmit, because they are machines that are high-powered machines and they need to be on 24/7, and as such, they need to be cooled down. And most data, if not all data centers, use power in order to keep that alive, in order to keep the AC flow going. So yeah, it's I would say that the internet as a resource consumer is right up there, like, for example, with the food chain or the air travel industry, where the heavier we travel, so to speak, the more fossil fuel we're burning. It's the same with the internet. The more data that I consume as a user, the more I am actually leaving a footprint behind as far as power consumption is concerned.
Yeah, I think it's really curious that you mentioned the sort of airline industry, and maybe I'll bolt into that. Cars. I mean, cars, obviously, if you stand anywhere near a car, you can literally smell the pollution. You can feel the stuff coming out the back. If you stand near where the exhaust is, you're repelled by that. You want to get away from it because you can feel the stuff going into your lungs. And I guess the same would be true if you stood anywhere near the back of an aeroplane. You can actually feel it, and it stinks. Whereas the internet is just such a different proposition. We use it to enrich our lives. We use it all the time, and there is so little connection between our consumption, which is almost 24/7 these days. I mean, I'm hand on heart, I'm trying to cut down my consumption of my mobile phone and the computers in front of me, but it feels like as each year goes by, despite my best efforts, I'm actually consuming more and more. So I guess that's the puzzle that needs to be unlocked. How do we make people have the connection between something which feels so clean? I mean, looking at my phone, and I take great pride in wiping it clean each day and making it look as shiny and new as possible. It feels like a benefit and a good thing, but obviously it's doing damage. How do we actually make people aware of all this stuff?
I happen to study history as well. I study history at a university in Costa Rica, and those are called social currents. And social currents are things that don't occur overnight. They are things that the more you discuss them, the more you analyze the problem, the more you expose the problem to people, the more people become aware of it, and thus the stream of change occurs. It's not something that happens overnight. Most historical, not facts, but things play out this way. Even though something might happen on a specific date, all the build-up, all the information, all the discussion that comes prior to it leads up to that incident. I'm not saying that this is going to lead to an incident. I'm just saying that there's a current of change that needs to be propagated, so to speak, amongst the population in order for people to become aware of it and ultimately, push for a change. Because I'm pretty certain, I'm very optimistic that we as a society are concerned with, our way of life on this planet, but we also want to keep our lifestyle, so to speak, in order to do stuff and have as little as impact as possible on the environment.
Yeah, the thing there, I suppose, is that given the choice of do you want to pollute or don't you want to pollute? It's a really easy binary decision to just say, well, I don't want to pollute.
I don't.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy, right? But then say, okay, can you put your mobile phone away for the rest of your life? I don't know about that. Quite happy with a little bit of pollution. And I suppose having a podcast like this, just getting that knowledge out there that these are the facts.
Correct.
This is where we're at right now.
Yes.
That's the thing which is going to start changing things. Okay, so please go and have a look at this page. It's GreenGeekscom /going-green. GreenGeeks.com /going-green. I'm going to take it on face value that everything written on that page is true, but there's some kind of remarkable things that came out of reading that page for me. And one of them is, I'm sure that everybody can understand that, you plug in a computer, the computer's on, it's using electricity. That's totally easy to understand. And if you've got a more modern computer with a slightly different setup from an older one, it might be able to use less power. The thing that jumped out for me, though, was that in all these data centers around the world, 40% of the power that's being used isn't used to power the computers, it's used to keep them from overheating. Now, that I just found utterly staggering.
Yeah, me too. When I first found out, I was really staggered about it. And I was like, oh, wow, I didn't think of this, but it's absolutely true. Then I thought maybe we should have the data centers up in the cold, with running, outside during the winter. But then I said this is highly unfeasible. But yeah.
Well, that was my immediate reaction as well. I just thought, well, wouldn't it be sensible? Because given the nature of the fact that the signals from the computer travel at the speed of light, and we can, in effect, communicate with, let's say, Alaska, for want of a better word. If we put lots of data centers in Alaska, then we would just open the door, and hopefully the freezing cold air would rush in and cool the computers down. And I thought, actually, that's not really solving the problem. That's just heating Alaska up, isn't it? And so, but how do we even get over this problem if 40% is used simply to cool them down? I mean, are there initiatives? Okay. First problem, is this massive overheating problem, is that largely because we're just stacking computers on top of other computers with basically no space between them? So the combined effort of putting all of these computers in one room, which we lock up and make secure and burglar proof, so presumably, there's no great holes out to the environment and what have you. Is it a product of that? We've got everything pushed into small spaces, and so they're combining the heat and making the problem worse?
No, because if you had the service somewhere else, that would still have the same issue.
Okay.
I think another part of the issue that's not discussed on this page as well It's also the commitment out of people who make software, out of people who make the internet possible by serving web pages. We don't tend to think of this, and it's not unfortunately highlighted on the site. I'll talk about it. But, I'm a developer as well, and if you don't need to send something to your visitor, you're actually adding towards that ultimate payload that is your website. So if, for example, I'm serving X amount of static files or let's say a video that someone isn't actually looking at, again, let's go back to the whole physics of impulse thing, and we're ultimately sending stuff to people that they don't actually use. And also we're making the web slower by serving people stuff that they don't need. I don't know if I explained myself correctly, but it's...
I get it.
Yeah.
Is what you're trying to say, if we're just creating unnecessarily big web pages, then okay, here's my analogy. See if this works. If you ask me to carry a cup of tea upstairs to my office, that's fine. I can carry the cup of tea. But if you say, here's a cup of tea, and whilst you're at it, would you needlessly carry this ton of lead at the same time and then just set it down at the top of the stairs, and then a bit later would you bring the lead back down again? Then I've just done a ton of work that I just basically shouldn't have had to have done because it was pointless.
That is the same analogy, but only with the side effect that you're actually consuming power because you're sending that data through.
Yeah.
And now multiply this by millions and millions or billions and billions of websites and whatnot. You are actually polluting stuff that is not going to be used. That's I would say the food analogy it comes great here because sometimes when we waste food or food goes bad, it's an effort of serving that food and all the logic behind it that is not going to be necessarily used because it's going to be wasted in, I don't know, it goes bad or people throw it away, they allowed it to go bad, stuff like that. That's why I'm also, on a personal note, I'm very, because when I became conscious of that, I was like, wow, I didn't know I was doing this. I became very conscious about, the food that I actually throw away. For me, it's a big deal, not because of the money, but because of the environmental impact as well. So yeah, that's a good analogy.
Okay, yeah, that makes perfect sense. I guess the thing here is that the internet seems to be growing at a rate. We've had it in certain parts of the world for probably a couple of decades now, and that has permeated so many different parts of our lives. If you go back 15 years, maybe you were doing email. And you would sit down at a computer and switch it on for a few minutes and check your email, and then the computer was probably obsolete and you'd switch it off again. And then everybody started sending attachments, and suddenly the computer was probably on for most of the day as things went from being paper-based to word processing. And then somebody invented the mobile phone, which could suddenly view the internet. And so now that's switched on permanently in your back pocket and needs charging each day. And then other parts of the world in their billions have also started to adopt the ubiquitous use of the internet. And it's a runaway train, right? And it's a runaway train that nobody's talking about. And I guess that's the problem that, well, on your website, again, same page as we mentioned earlier, in just 9 years ago, even the number 9 years ago is breathtaking. There were 500,000, so 500,000 data centers. And by data centers, imagine, you walk in and there's just row after row after row of computer, all switched on and doing things busily 100% of the time. And now, just 9 years later, 8 million data centers. So that's a 16-fold increase. And this article was probably written 2 years ago now, because it says that was a 16-fold increase in 7 years, not 9 years. And I guess that's part of the problem as well. It's a hidden problem. It's a problem that nobody can tangibly get right off the bat. And it's just getting bigger.
Correct. And I would also add to the things that you mentioned about, being in the snowball effect, also the Internet of Things out of all the devices. That are coming out, that's also, adding more and more, load to things, So
we have two solutions for this problem. The first one is that somebody discovers cold fusion at room temperature. Yay! And then we don't have to worry anymore. Or we have to start being a bit more responsible and reining things back in and examining the way that we're using things. It feels to me like route number 2 is the more likely. Let's pray for route number 1, but it's it's probably not going to happen. And so what do we do? What are some little steps that we can do in our own personal lives? Let's just talk about that in general, and also, we're WordPress website builders. Let's develop that a little bit as well.
Yeah, like I said, iterating over the point that I said previously, do I need to send all this data to my user in order to have the site experience that this person is going to need when they visit that website? I think that is the number one question, because when we're using WordPress, we're like, oh yeah, let's add a plugin here, let's add a plugin there, let's do this. I want to serve this huge slider with this great video. It's a fantastic video. It only weighs like 10 megabytes. And let's say we load it on the web page, but it's at the bottom or the middle of the web page or so. The question arises, should we need to serve that video, or should we activate the video whenever someone clicks on it and then request the resource? Because that's not going to be the same as all the people downloading the video, even though they're not going to use it. And going back to the LED analogy that you mentioned earlier, it's stuff of like that. It's things of that nature. Also, from a political point of view, also, how is your government acquiring the energy the electricity in order to power the country? Because I'll take my country, for example. I think this is like our 3rd year in a row where 99% of the energy that we've used has been through renewable sources. We, for example, use water. We use hydro power a lot, so we've produced so much rain in these past years that we haven't had the need to, burn fossils such as coal or gas or petrol, I would say, in order to power up our country. So yeah, those two things are linked together, and obviously, go with start knowing more about this. And like I said earlier about the social current of change, are we demanding this out of other companies as well? Are we preferring companies that have this in mind or not in order to move forward with the problem? Because like I said, like you said, we're a green company, and we actually, what we consume as a whole, through our data centers, we put that back in forms of renewable energy sources.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously on a global level, we need politicians and governments and what have you to be taking great care of this. But on a more personal level, I guess that there's a responsibility for us to start demanding these kind of things. I'm just curious, is there, as far as you know, is there any way where I can make a judgment about what I am personally doing? So let's say, for example, I spend my day on the internet browsing around. Do you know if there's any browser extension or any Mac thing? The irony is it will use more energy, but something that would tell me.
Not at this time. Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, that's a good thing to have or implement, because I saw this as well many years ago. It was actually a site from the UK. Because there's also, I mean, this is also another problem that's intangible. A lot of the stuff that we use, there's slave labor behind it. I wasn't aware of that either. So they do this little really nice calculator asking you how many devices you got, how many TVs you got, et cetera, and then it calculates how many slaves you have working for you. And people are like, what do you mean slaves? How can that be? And then they explain the root of the problem, saying that a lot of things are manufactured in countries where, slave work is something that is not really criminalized. And obviously big companies, in order to save money, they put that stuff on those regions in order to produce something as cheap as possible. But no, to answer your question, no. But it will be something really cool, because again, it creates the whole awareness kind of thing out of individuals that allows for social currents of change to take place.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's probably some developers listening to this. Here you go. I'm handing you it on a plate. Here's a great tool for you to build a browser extension or something like that. You know, if I could see that yesterday I consumed like, I don't know, some amount of joules. Let's use joules, and that was a big amount. And then the following day I see that I actually used less, and I could make some sort of comparison with what is this actually doing. You know, how many.
That is a really cool idea.
Yeah, how many trees are coming down in order to go into a power plant in order for that to happen. Those kind of things would be really interesting. I remember reading an article by an automatician, so somebody working for Automatic. His name's Jack Lennox. I don't know if you've come across him. And
No.
He a little while ago was, it was probably about a year ago actually, he put out a 7K web page because of this exact problem. He thought, well, I'm going to strip out absolutely everything that I don't want. And he wasn't actually recommending that most sites go down this route, but he was basically saying, look, I can get a web page out in 7K with the tiniest amount of calls to and from the server. And it was text, and it was using, you know, native fonts and all of those kind of things. And there was no clever whiz-bang imagery, certainly no video or anything like that. But it was curious to see, actually, that's perfectly usable, and yet it's using almost none is a pejorative term, but very, very few resources.
Correct. There's services out there like Pingdom, and I think Google Chrome has an extension called Lighthouse. No, actually, I don't think they know. I know they have it. It's called Lighthouse, where you can measure your statistics about, you know, how efficient are you serving a particular web page. I think it's a really cool tool because it solves two problems. It kills two birds in a stone. Well, number one, it makes your site a lot faster, which a lot of visitors will appreciate that because everybody likes a fast web and they don't like to wait for stuff. And second, you're serving less and less stuff because those two services will give you the culprit as to what is causing your web page to not load. Where are the resources being consumed? Those services answer that question, and I think those are pretty cool tools that I would absolutely recommend to any WordPress developer out there to use it to verify and see where you can cut, like you said, the lead. Where can I cut the lead that I don't need or that I don't strictly need, but still maintaining an acceptable experience for your users. So yeah, those two.
One thing which I would be really curious about is we're always told to sort of niche down in website building. You know, find a niche. Maybe that's automotive or maybe that's weddings or whatever it might be, and go at that niche and represent yourself as that niche. And I'm curious, I wonder if there's a niche here for I am the environmental website builder. There's a guy who drives past my house very often, and on the side of his truck it says greener building, and there's a few little images and there's a few words. I won't bore you with it, but essentially he's stamping his environmental credentials. He's going to come to your house and he is going to build things which have been environmentally sourced and are going to make your house pollute less in the future because he's going to insulate it and so on. And I was totally captured by this. And when I had some recent building work, guess who I called? It was him. And I just wonder, in the future, maybe this is something like a badge of honor. Maybe this is something that you could sell to your clients as a, look, we're going to build you a nice green website. Maybe it won't have all the images. Maybe it won't have the flashy video. But here's why you should do it. And here's how we're going to do it. And this is the impact you'll have.
That's not a bad idea. Like, I don't know, like a certification that your website has a positive carbon footprint or something like that.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
Well,
yeah, I like that as well.
I mean, if you think about it, it's basically what you're doing. Your posture on hosting is the exact same thing, but it's just taking it to a sort of slightly different audience and saying, we're the environmental website builders. We're going to do our very best. Now, moving back to your web page, this I think has to be raised. This, again, just breathtaking statistics that you can't take in. Assuming this article was written 2 years ago, which it feels like it was, at the time it says that 2% of the world's carbon emissions were created by data centers, which, again, according to the article, represents the same as the airline industry. Okay. But you say it doesn't stop there. The internet is expected to grow to 14%, so that's a gigantic jump in emissions by the year 2040, as much as 14% being added in. And that almost feels crazy to say that the internet is the same as the airline industry, but that's true, right?
It is, yeah. And I would say that number is a little optimistic because if this was written when you say it was written, this was definitely before the pandemic. And obviously, when the pandemic happened, the usage of services absolutely skyrocketed all across the globe.
Yeah.
And so I would say that number is still even it's a little conservative. That's the medical term we use. It's conservative.
Not to sort of like conflate two things, but curious. I wonder actually, and this is just me wondering. I've got no statistics to back it up. I wonder if during the pandemic, if the airline industry went down in the same amount that the internet went up. In other words, I wonder if there was a net gain to the environment because people stopped traveling around in their cars quite so much and stopped flying in aeroplanes quite so much. It's just hyperbole. I have no idea what the balance there would have been.
That's a good line of thought. As they say in Latin, quid pro quo, one for the other.
That's right, and also with the advent of so we want to cut out aeroplanes, and the internet does provide that functionality. If I can attend an online event as opposed to getting in a car and driving to a train station and getting on a train and then ultimately on a plane and yada yada yada. Wonder if there is some sort of benefit there. So during all of this, we don't want to paint the internet as some sort of evil destructor of the environment because we all love it. We all love what it provides. We love that it connects us all. We love that it makes our lives richer. So we're just sort of throwing that into the mix. Okay, so to Green Geeks. Green Geeks web hosting, like I said, it positions itself as a good custodian on the internet, a company who are going to manage your WordPress website with the environment as thought number one. So tell me, how do you achieve that? What are some of the more important things that you do to differ from all the others?
Well, you mean from the green perspective?
That's right, yeah.
Okay, first of all, we do two things. I love both, but the second one I'll give a higher emphasis. But the first one is that, we partner with the Bonneville Environmental Foundation. They're based out of Portland. And basically what they do is they tally up, how much yearly energy consumption we made as a whole company, both our data centers and our employees, which are distributed worldwide. And then we purchase those credits as, 3 times as much as that we have consumed. And we put that energy back into the grid in the forms of renewable energy sources. So, like I said, it's how much did we consume as a whole company, okay? So the Bonneville Environmental Foundation will tell you, okay, we consume this. So we purchase credits in order to put that same or 3 times as much back into the grid in ways of renewable energy sources. That's one initiative that we do.
Can we just dwell on that one a minute? Because I never have understood the sort of like buying back I've polluted, so I'm going to buy back something. Because I've heard, on the news you hear terrible stories about companies who wantonly pollute, but because they know they can spend their way out of the pollution, they just carry on polluting because you can buy and offset certain things. So just explain what is the Bonneville Environmental Foundation and what are you actually buying and why, you're buying 3 times more of it, but what is that you're buying?
We're basically buying energy like resource, like power, but we're buying 3 times as much of what we consume, but they have to be it has to be energy that has been produced using clean ways of producing power, such as wind, water, and so forth.
So if you're buying 3 times more energy than you produce, forgive me because I just simply don't understand. Are you just not giving your energy company 3 times more money than you owe them?
That's a good question. I don't have the answer for that one. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because I mean, maybe there's more to the Bonneville Environmental Foundation than I know. But if the proposition is we're buying 3 times more than we need, it's like the what? 3 times more of what? And if my telephone company says, Mr. Wrigley, you owe us £100 this month, and I say, do you know what? I'm going to give you £300. My telephone company, going to go, yeah, all right, that's great, but we're not going to give you anything back. You just paid us loads more. Fabulous, great. So that I would love to have an answer to if at some point we can get that.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Okay, sorry, I interrupted. Now, please carry on.
Yeah, and the second thing that we do, which I absolutely love because I did this once and I was really, really thrilled about it, is that, for every customer that arrives at our website, like every person that hops on board our platform, we plant 1 tree across the globe. Again, we partner with a nonprofit organization, and what they do is they plant a tree in either Latin America, Africa, or Asia. So it's called the One Tree Planted nonprofit organization. I did this, I think it was like 10 or 15 years ago, with a bank here in Costa Rica. They called me and they were like, do you want to, purchase a tree? It's worth this much, and we're going to keep it in a reservoir, yada, yada, yada. And about 2 years ago, they reached out to me saying that my tree had grown, I don't know how much, but that made me really, really happy, because I was like, yeah, I planted that tree, thanks to my money, I did that. So I was really ecstatic about it, and I was really happy when we introduced this. We introduced it, I think it was this year. It was this year. We introduced that this year. So again, for every sign up that we have, every customer we get on board, we plant 1 tree, either in Africa, India, Asia, or Latin America. So I was really ecstatic about that.
That one's really easy to pass, isn't it? Because just like nobody is going to say, can you quit planting trees? I don't understand it. Everybody gets that one. So that's a really nice offer. So if you sign up for Green Geeks, they will grow a tree, which is just lovely and totally easy to understand. I'm just wondering on the kind of like the hardware level, on the actual infrastructure that you have. Do you do anything different? Do you like have a different sort of server structure or a different version of Linux or whatever it is that you're running? Which
not that I know of.
No. So just that. So basically, it's the buying of the credits and the planting of the trees. Okay, yeah, I must inquire more about the whole credits thing. If I can figure that out before the show notes go up, I will endeavour to put that in. If you can send something to me, that'd be great. Okay, let's talk about the actual hosting that you do. Concentrate on that for a few minutes. What kind of I know that you're all about WordPress. You specialize in WordPress hosting, you say, and WooCommerce and so on. Just tell us a little bit about your pricing and what it is that you offer.
Okay, I would say our strength has to do with shared hosting, even though we offered all the other services out there like VPS and dedicated hosting and whatnot. But I would say that our web hosting is really, really cool because it's cheap. I mean, price starts like at $250 a month when you sign up for us through a long-term plan. And, we offer the standard stuff. It's disk-based via SSL. We offer, the bandwidth. It's up to I don't know what the limit was. I think it was, I don't remember. We don't have a limit as to the bandwidth that you can use, but I know some of the plans have a limitation as to how much disk space you can have, but it's a very reasonable amount. And I mean, for example, for $2.50 a month, you get like 50 gigabytes of web space on our hosting platform. I think that's really, really a lot for a plan as small as that. You can have, one site if you use the lowest plan, or you can have unlimited websites for paying a fee such as $5 to $9 a month. I mean, that's also really, really cool. I'm going to say this because I have my websites on another provider, and I don't pay as little as GreenGeeks. Trust me on that one. Well, but I don't want them to know I'm still there. It's just that, it's a funny story to this because we also have a team that migrates the stuff for you. But I am torn between the moral question is, should I allow my coworkers to do this stuff for me? So the answer has been no, ever since I started at GreenGeeks. So I'm like, I keep procrastinating. I was like, yeah, I'm going to migrate to GreenGeeks. Yeah, I'm going to move my stuff to GreenGeeks. But then I think about all the websites I got to do. I'm like, oh man, this needs to wait. This needs to wait, and so forth and so forth. But we do have a team that does that for you. It's just that I don't want to tell the guys that it's me. Yeah, exactly. I don't want to use internal resources of my company. So that's why I haven't moved. But we have plans that start at $250 a month. One of the cool things about our company is that we are trying to diversify and satisfy the needs of our customers, no matter what their expertise level is. I think this is really important because there are people out there who are really familiar with WordPress. They're really insane when it comes to implementing WordPress, so they will probably feel familiar with cPanel or command line or doing stuff that it's a little bit geeky, it's on that side. But we also have customers that have small business owners that they don't necessarily know how to set up a WordPress website. So we are transitioning into that niche as well, where we want to implement solutions for them as quickly and as easy as possible without them needing to be experts. And I guess that goes a little bit back to the builders thing that you said initially. Builders are out there for that reason as well. You want people to mock up websites using WordPress without the whole coding stuff and whatnot. So again, it's something that's caters a specific need, and this is something I absolutely like about our company.
You can find out more about the actual plans if you go further down a little, just basically on the homepage, just slightly down. It's like the second row. You'll be able to see the actual plans. And then if you go to their pricing page, which is greengeeks.com/WordPress-hosting, you'll be able to see that there's 3 tiers: light at $249, Pro at $495. This is all in dollars, and premium is $895 per month. When you begin, you'll be able to sign up for a period of time. Obviously, they've got a commitment with their 300% energy match, the one tree planted, which is just the best in my opinion. That's the best bit. And so you can sign up over there. I would like to point out from my perspective that I attend a lot of WordPress events, and I have my nose buried in the WordPress community. This is not something that we've mentioned, but just as a person that's in the WordPress community, I do see you all over the place. You are sponsoring events and helping out and being good custodians of the community. So just from my point of view, I'd like to acknowledge that happens.
I'm also nose into the community as well, but I guess we haven't met because we're separated by this gigantic ocean. But that's working here. I love some of the initiatives that we as a company have. And like I said, the whole green thing, the planting trees, they're catering to customers no matter what their expertise level is. And another thing that I absolutely love is that we sponsor these things because we believe, I think it's the ethos of what WordPress represents, of pushing the web forward with knowledge, of allowing people to grow, either doesn't matter if they're a developer or marketer and whatnot. We want to help people out by gaining knowledge and becoming better at what they do. And I think that when we sponsor these type of things, be this WordCamps or events, we're contributing to that. So it feels very, very, very satisfying to know that our company stands behind those initiatives.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate you coming on and talking to us today. Just before we close, I wondered if there was any place where, if people wanted to get in touch with you personally, obviously, if you wanted to get in touch with Green Geeks as a whole, you can just go to the website and figure it out from there. But Marco, yourself, how would we get in touch with you? What's the best angle?
The best angle is no angle. No, I'm just kidding. No. You can reach out to me at my email. It's M as in Marco, M Berrocal, my last name. That's BERROCAL at GreenGeekscom. I am also on Twitter. I am. My handle is Marco BL10, and you can reach out to me there as well. I'm not very active on Twitter. Well, I am actually. I am. And sometimes it comes off and on. I don't know.
I know.
Sometimes I feel like I want to tweet.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't want to know anything about it.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, I know what you mean. But I'll put that in the show notes if anybody wants to contact you. But Marco, thanks very much for joining us on the podcast today. I really appreciate it.
No. Thank you for having me. It's been a blast. I can't believe almost 40 minutes.
I know. That's always the way.
Whenever
we start these podcast episodes, everybody always says, wow, we're going to talk for 40 minutes. And at the end, it's always, wow, we talked for 40 minutes. And it felt like
exactly.
Nothing. Yeah. But again, thank you for joining us today.
It's a pleasure.
Well, I hope that you enjoyed that episode. It was very nice chatting to Marco. I'm sure many of you will be like me. You don't really associate your browsing, your consumption of the internet as having an environmental impact. And maybe by the end of this episode, you've learned a little bit differently and you're going to rethink the way that you do things. Possibly you could pivot and make yourself into some sort of environmentally friendly agency who create environmentally friendly websites in terms of the architecture and the things that you choose, the places that you host and so on. So I'd be very curious if anybody's got any thoughts on that. Give us a comment. Go to wpbuilds.com and search for episode number 274. You can leave a comment there or go to wpbuilds.com/Facebook and that will get you into our Facebook group and you could leave a comment there by searching for the thread. Anyway, that's it for this week. In a moment, I'm going to fade in some cheesy music, but just to say, I'll be back next week with David Wormsley for an episode chatting about the WordPress Business Bootcamp, and also back every Monday for our This Week in WordPress live show, 2 p.m. UK time, wpbuilds.com/live. Hope to see you there. Like I say, cheesy music fading in. Stay safe. Bye-bye for now.